Welcome to Storytime. Enjoy with me. Open Doors, Kathy Paige, the Queen of Radio Interviews. Part 1.
Kathy Paige had been blinded at birth. She had been born 2 months early, and at that time, doctors had not yet realized that giving a new baby pure oxygen to breathe would destroy the sensitive nerves at the back of its eyes. But that was then. Kathy Paige was now a leading journalist in British radio. She was best known for her intelligent but tough interviews of public figures and people in the news. A recent interview was typical of her style. "So, your election promise to uncover political dishonesty, does that include the bribing of government ministers?"
Of course, this government will not tolerate dishonesty of any sort.
Would that include the money you received from foreign businessmen and didn't tell your government about?
That was a misunderstanding. I can explain everything.
Can you explain the government contracts given to those same businessmen shortly afterwards?
Well,
Thank you, Minister. And now over to the news desk. Kathy Paige had no patience with any attempts to hide the truth. She had a voice that was gentle and calm, almost motherly at times, which men found attractive. Nearly everybody she interviewed tended to relax more when she spoke. That was when Kathy was at her most effective. More than one politician had cause to be sorry for a careless reply to the relaxing manner of her voice. Kathy knew better than most people how to listen to the human voice. She couldn't see all the little tricks people sometimes used with body language and the expressions on their faces to give false ideas of their real feelings. She could only hear what they said. It was almost impossible for the people she interviewed to hide the tiny changes of expression in their voices that showed what they really thought. No matter how hard they tried to cover it up, she could always tell when a person was feeling uncomfortable and could usually understand the reason why. Kathy would be kind to guests who were not used to being the center of attention. For example, she understood the natural shyness of an old lady who had been given a prize for her work with the poor. But if she thought a guest was lying, she would not stop questioning until she had discovered the truth. If a lie had been told, she always made sure her listeners knew it. Politicians and businessmen often thought that somehow they could fool her. They rarely did. Kathy was too good at her job for that. Her listeners loved her. She was their star. They knew that if anyone could find out the truth, it was Kathy Paige. Kathy had been in the business of radio reporting for 30 of her 50 years in the world. She was happy in her work. She had never married, though she was often told that she was attractive. She was. Her black hair was long and shiny, without a touch of grey. Her face was pretty without being weak, and the few lines which showed made it more interesting. Many hours of yoga had kept her figure in good shape. No, she was not short of male admirers. Occasionally, she would allow one to take her to dinner if he could hold an interesting conversation, but she mostly preferred the company of her colleagues, her books, and Trudy, her much-loved 6-year-old guide dog. She loved music and the arts. She regularly went to the theatre for old as well as new productions. It was a favourite activity of hers. The only thing she ever regretted was that she could not see paintings. She had read a lot about great artists and their work, and often wished that she could see a great painting, even if it were just for a short while. But then she would put away such thoughts. They were silly and senseless. It would never happen. Television producers had often, over the years, tried to get Kathy to present her own chat show on television. They knew she was a favourite with the public, and they wanted to attract the large audience that such a show would surely bring. Kathy always turned them down. She felt at home with the radio. It didn't matter what you looked like. It was what you said that you would be judged by. That's what she always told everybody. And besides, Kathy Paige, the queen of radio interviews, was shy about her appearance.
She turned you down? Again? Are you sure you told her just how much money we're offering?
Mick Dean, the current favourite of his television company, waved his other arm around as he held the telephone. There was nobody else in the office, but he waved anyway. It was just a way of showing his feelings. He couldn't understand how anybody could turn down an offer like this. He had had similar conversations before, all about Kathy Paige.
Okay, but don't give up. Try again in a week. Yes. Bye.
Mick Dean put the telephone down. He was the company's youngest producer and was responsible for many of its newest and most successful shows. He was particularly good at producing chat shows and more serious shows that interviewed people in the news. He believed that a lively argument was the best way to entertain viewers. It would make more people watch the next time. "They like to see a good fight," he would always say. "And they like fighters." That was why he had always wanted Kathy Paige to present one of his shows.
Not only is she a good fighter, she looks great too, and people respect her. She'd be a sure winner, and I want her before anybody else gets her.
Yet again, his best man had failed to persuade Kathy to join him. But Mick Dean was not the kind to give up. He had not been the first producer to try to win Kathy Paige over to television, but he was determined to be the last. Kathy's radio show was one of the most popular shows on the station. She would interview people in the news and deal with serious issues. As well as the usual politicians and businessmen, she often spoke to artists, writers, and scientists. The shows got more interesting for the listeners when Kathy questioned her guests, especially when the guests said things that Kathy found hard to believe. That really made things exciting. It was getting towards the end of her morning show, and her final guest was coming on. He was an American scientist, Dr. Woodrow Percival, who was an expert in eye surgery. He interested Kathy because he had said that he could replace damaged eye nerves with tiny computer chips that would work just as well as real nerves, perhaps even better. Kathy took a personal interest in this. He had said, in fact, that he could make the blind see. What's more, he had said that he could make her see. Kathy had come across other experts before. Sometimes they were more interested in getting publicity for themselves than in telling the truth, saying that a small discovery was greater than it really was. If this guy had any real doubts about his methods, Kathy thought, she would know it. It was wrong to raise the hopes of people who might otherwise have accepted their disability and got on with their lives. If he was offering false hope to people, he should be found out, and she was just the person to do it. She introduced Dr. Percival to her listeners and began. Dr. Percival, you're going to give a talk later today about your new treatment. Could you, in simple language, explain how this treatment works?
Certainly.
To be continued.